junction of cognitive and social goals had a strong historical connection to eugenics. So, you can't make any plan. There's just quote after quote through the book in which she keeps saying over and over, his entire plan for this funding was not benevolent. It was to control human beings in the way they would think, to control human thought, and to get rid of people that he considered undesirable. Well, he had all the money at his disposal from Carnegie Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Laura Spelman Rockefeller Memorial, the Ford Foundation. So he had a massive amount of foundation money. In addition, as being advisors to the federal government, all of the money that the government was spending in these areas, which was much greater than even the foundations, was controlled by the foundations itself. So eventually today, they have the wealth of the entire world at their disposal to carry out these programs. We're talking about hundreds of trillions of dollars over this planet to promote, and she even mentions New World Order, which she said they helped design with the Council on Foreign Relations. So all of these things are well documented. It's not just something that you or I are making up like that.
And, Doctor, it's horrifying. We've got a break. Quick break, long segment coming up, sir. And it's just horrifying. This is Planet Eugenics. This is your life we're talking about here. This is the medical institutions, the colleges, the cities, the counties, all social engineering. Now the banks, by design, their own documents, we've covered here at nauseum, are imploding the economy by design to where you literally have to have a government job or work for a company being financed by the internationalist. Dr. Russell Blaylock is our guest, and coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're going to open the phones up at 1-800-259-9231. 1-800-259-9231. Dr. Blaylock, we're continuing with the history here. I want to get into now what they're setting up, what their master plan is from your deep research, what their goal is. Because studying the world, studying history, doing this radio show, it's been quite a journey for myself in 13 years, because all of us that do research, whether they're a top brain surgeon like yourself or a member of Congress like Ron Paul, or we come to the same conclusion separately. This is the stated goal. And I see just a microcosm example. A few years ago, it's in my film Endgame, the legislature was having hearings about why so many foster children were dying, why they were grabbing hundreds of thousands of children, 1.4 million nationwide every year, why 67% of children nationwide and in Texas, the state average was the same as the national average here, of 67% put on psychotropic drugs. And the head of the psychiatry department, Association of Texas, got up and said, well, they have bad gene pools, so that's why we're doing this to these children. And you run into any of these guys, and I've been to a lot of events, and they'll go, yeah, we're getting rid of people. Humans are a disease. We're a parasite, and we, the elite, are getting rid of them. And I tell the story, my mother one time was riding with my father and myself when they were visiting me, and they'd come into the office and seen part of Endgame a year and a half ago being finished. And my mother said, son, I know you tell the truth about all this stuff, and she's got a degree in history, but she said, I can't believe they really want to kill 80% of us. And my dad had never told the story, and he goes, he was a top student in high school and then went on. This is when he was still in high school, was taken to UT as part of this Academy of Sciences, and they tested thousands of kids, and he was down to the top 6, and they took him aside and said, we want to send you to one of these top schools. We want you to be part of the New World Order. We're going to carry out eugenics. The public, we've got to get rid of the majority of the population. And my dad got out of it at that point because, he was well read in history. He said, this is really sick. And he thought of the Nazis, but he'd never told us that. And then I talked to other professionals. They are recruiting the creme de la creme of society, as you just said earlier, into this since the 30s in the Western world. Please continue.
Right. And if you go into the New World Order, she even makes this statement. She said, in December 1946, the Special Committee launched its new policy, accommodating its work for a New World Order, efforts toward internationalism. In other words, they were internationalizing this eugenics program. Now, she says in 1945, because of the Holocaust and the bad publicity that was spreading over the world of social planning and eugenics, they immediately told all of their people to get all of the references in our writings the social control, social planning, and eugenics out of it. We'll just change the names so people won't recognize it. Now, she says this in her book, and she's a major MIT, Johns Hopkins trained historian who's
this is crypto eugenics. They overnight changed all the names.
Right. They selectively went out and removed all of these names, so then their publications sounded very high.
Getting rid of the infirm became the bioethicist movement. Just
right.
on and on and on.
Exactly. And, of course, one of the most powerful of all the associations is the Social Sciences Research Council, which Rockefeller formed back in, I think, 1904, 1907, something like that. And now it is an enormously powerful organization that has a number. It has something like, I think in 1950, it had 16 different foundations supporting it, all of them Rockefeller connected. So they were pouring massive money into it, and it virtually controlled the entire social sciences research, not just in this country, but all over the world.
And they're meanwhile were scouting for all the new brains to make sure that the brain trust was under their control.
Exactly. And by controlling education and controlling the media, they made sure that people all conform to this way of thinking. Now, here's the way they controlled the people who were dissidents in the intellectual world, people that were professors in the universities didn't want to go along with that.
They cut their funding off.
Well, they would cut their funding off, make sure they never got a research grant. If they were not tenured, they made sure they were fired. And what they also did to elevate their people to the highest rung of being experts in the world is they would give them huge grants so they no longer had to bother with teaching students.
And they would publish their books.
Time writing.
And they would publish their books and make them rock stars of the media.
And they reviewed their books in the journals that they controlled, because one of the things they did went out and controlled all the journals. And so that then their people's books were reviewed with high praise. Any person who was a nonconformist, their book was either not reviewed or given poor reviews. And so when experts were asked for in a certain subject for the federal government, they went to the foundation's experts. They go to the CFR, they go to the SSRC for an expert. And so, oh, yes, we have experts in that area. We have experts in population control. We have experts in any subject that you want. And, of course, it's all their people with all their philosophy. And as you say, a lot of this population control is buried in language for the general public not to recognize.
And now we're living in really 100 years of this, 70-plus intensely. Continue with closing that gap from the 60s on into today and what the master plan is, Dr. Blaylock, from your deep research.
Well, the plan is they want to get rid of most of the population, because what they realize is with technological advances, we're not going to need all these workers. I mean, if you look at some of the modern plants, I've been in some of the big plants, and you look at them, and there's a room the size of 3 or 4 football fields, and there's a couple of dozen people working there, because everything else is robotic and electronic and technologically controlled. So
and that's like Bill Joy. That's like Bill Joy whenever he went back in 99 to a big technology conference, and he's worth $4 billion, co-owner of Sun Microsystems. And he came back and wrote an article, Why the Future Doesn't Need Us, in Wired Magazine. And he said, look, I met with the elite. They're planning to kill everybody.
Well, they don't need them. And the other thing that you read...
That's what he said. He said they don't need them because of the robotics.
Well, the thing you also realize when you read in the literature is they're scared of them, because now you have a large segment of your population that's unemployed. They become restless, and then they're a danger to the established order, to the elite. And so the thing that they're trying to do is reduce the population size through various measures like birth control, abortion, all of these different methods, the soft methods, to get rid of people. And then, of course, they're using over-vaccination, fluoride, mercury, all of these other things that increase mortality. They're keeping treatments out of the medical world that could save a lot of lives, improve health, because they want people to die off that are not in the elite group. Now, if you look back at the French Revolution, a lot of people don't know this. In the French Revolution, one of the ideas was to kill most of the population of France. And the idea was that we would have a group of elite, and since we've killed 10 million people in France,